Hello, everybody out there. Hello to our wonderful Modern Prairie community. Thank you so much for joining us today on this gorgeous, gorgeous day. I am here with my co-founder of Modern Prairie, Nicole Hazy, my best friend in the whole world, Sandy Peckinpah, and my new friend, Christine Semple, who is one of our Modern Prairie Modern mavens and a life coach. And the reason we're here today is because a few weeks ago, Christine and I did a Facebook Live conversation about all kinds of things. We talked about aging. We talked about being stuck. We talked about finding value and validation in ourselves as women as we get older and the changes that we're going through. And we touched on a number of topics, and one of them was grief. And then we reached out to you, our community, and asked if we could get together and have another conversation. What topics would you like us to discuss? And we heard you loud and clear. Nicole and I read everything that comes in. We discuss with our team everything that comes in and where we're headed. And overwhelmingly, the number one topic you wanted to hear about was grief, loss, and recovery. And before we even get into it, I want you all to know that this is the beginning of this conversation with you. We're not sure what form it's going to take, if we'll continue on maybe with workshops with one or both of these incredible women, or other forums, or break it down into specific topics within that framework of grief, loss, and recovery. We want to hear from you moving forward what you want us to do and how you would best like to, how we could best help you with these issues, and then other conversations moving forward. There are so many things to discuss, all of them about loving and supporting one another in this community we've created. So before the ladies talk, also, I want to tell you, I want to take a couple minutes. If you, there'll be a little exercise that we're going to go through at some point during this forum. So if you can grab a pen and a piece of paper, that would be great. I'm going to give you a couple minutes. I'm just going to vamp for a couple minutes while you out there grab a pen and a piece of paper. And I'm just going to keep yakking in the meantime. You should also know that once this Facebook Live event is done, Nicole and our brilliant tech wizards at Modern Prairie will make sure, Nicole and the people who are tech wizards, well, she's a tech wizard.
Fair, totally fair.
Are going to make sure that this conversation is accessible on the Modern Prairie website, on YouTube, on Instagram, and it will be also on Facebook. So if you know someone who you feel this will benefit, if you want to see it again, if it went by too fast and you missed something, it will be there in perpetuity for you to access and for anyone you feel would benefit to access. I sort of feel like that was enough time to grab a pen and paper.
We should also just say too, we've got some individuals joining us from Australia. It's 3 a.m. there. Wow. So Lisa, hello. That's
wow.
That's fantastic.
Nicole is monitoring all comments and people who join, and she will be keeping track of questions and comments as they come in. I see Christine is doing it too. I could, but I would be so distracted.
Right.
I'm like a dog squirrel.
Something shiny.
Something shiny. So I'm going to leave it to someone who's actually able to multitask better than me. So we will be monitoring comments and questions as we go forward, and hopefully we'll be able to answer them for you. And if not, maybe at another time we'll be able to answer. And we're certainly going to keep an eye out for anyone who has a burning desire or a pressing need, or something is really urgent and emergent. So I told you a little about, just a tiny bit about how I know these extraordinary women. I'm going to let them tell you their stories and why we all decided to come together this way. And yeah, I think that's it. Oh, and also another thing to do before I hand it over to these women, please remember, if you haven't yet, sign up for our newsletter too, and have anyone who might be interested in these forums, future forums and conversations, or Modern Prairie in general, sign up for the newsletters, because there's a lot of benefits to that. You get previews of stuff. You'll be able to help us figure out what products you may want to see on the website or what topics you want us to tackle or deal with. So sign up for the newsletter because there'll be exclusive ways for you to communicate that with us and for us to communicate with you. All right, that said, I'm going to hand it over to these amazing women. And why don't we start with Nicole? Do you want to introduce yourself to everybody and just say a few words?
Sure. I'm Nicole Hawsey, co-founder of Modern Prairie. And really the reason we created this digital brand is to bring a community of women together. I think as we age, we see no one is really speaking to us, marketing to us, hearing us. And I think we hear consistently the word invisible. We are not invisible. We're powerful. As a community of women, we can be very strong. And I think we find every day working together. There's just so many amazing mavens out there doing it every day. And it's our responsibility to share it. And so I think, getting feedback, that's one of the best parts of our job is we get feedback in real time and hearing about grief, loss, and healing. All of us are going through this in very different ways, and it comes in different capacities, whether it's, loss of life or loss of friendships or loss of jobs. There's change consistently in our lives. And I think being able to communicate, talk about it, and have a way that feels comfortable and that you're not alone, I think is one of the most important elements of it. So I'm happy to be here. I think, to Melissa's point, we consistently get emails and commentary about what's the timeline for grief? How do I move forward? What do I do? And I think, having Sandy and Christine share their experiences will help. I mean, we all know one thing we know for sure, grief is not linear, and it's okay to feel a certain way. So we're just very excited to be here. I don't need to kind of reiterate Melissa's amazing. She said it all. But it's an honor to be here with all of you. Sandy?
Thanks,
Oh, well, thank you for letting me be a part of this because this is my dream come true to be able to share my story as well as Melissa's story because she is so woven into my life story for the past 30 years. It's just remarkable. But I do want to say that no one is immune to having life experiences of loss and trauma. We're all in this together. We've all had those experiences of trauma, and we don't know what it looks like. For some, it may be a divorce. For some, it may be loss of a child, which was my experience. But what surprisingly happened in my life was grief coming from something I didn't expect, that it's not the typical thing that you would attach to grief. And that was the fact that at one moment in time, my life felt very vulnerable to bad things happening. And that was, I was probably around 38, 39 years old. And I thought I had this fairy tale life. I mean, I had everything in life. I had 2 sons. They were remarkable boys, a husband, a career. My husband was a writer and producer in television and film. And at the time, he was on a TV show called Beauty and the Beast on CBS with Ron Perlman and Linda Hamilton. And I just loved that show, and I could so relate to the romance of it. And the one thing that David and I always did at the end of every day was discuss storylines. So we would come up with ideas. He was writing the show, he was producing it. We would come up with ideas and backstory for the characters. So in investigating those backstories, we thought, what would it be like if you had a facial defect like the Beast, like Vincent in this story, and have to face every day with people looking at you and wondering what happened and why do you look? And in Vincent's case, actual fear with the way he looked. And so those conversations were frequent because they were part of the storyline. I was pregnant at the time that he was doing that show. And I just had these great expectations for this beautiful baby girl, because it was going to be my first daughter. Everything became pink and white in the room, and because I'd had two boys, and I had had two healthy boys. But on the night that she was born with a birth defect, a cleft. Her face was deformed. It was unfinished. And as upset as I was, it was almost a familiar feeling that this face was something that I knew already, because the stories of talking about Vincent and what it would be like had prepared me for a deeper understanding than I ever could have imagined. And I think that was the first time that I felt like somehow there's something greater up there preparing me for this moment in time. And what I didn't anticipate was the grief surrounding her birth. And not that I wasn't happy that she was healthy in every other way. She would need lots of surgeries, but I didn't want her to need lots of surgeries. It was so upsetting that my daughter would have to go through a youth of surgeries to repair her face to be what it is today. And Melissa is her godmother. You can validate, Melissa. Thank God for those miraculous surgeons who knew exactly what to do, right?
Yep.
Yeah, she is lovely today. And so she was one of the lucky ones, because her birth defect could be repaired, but I didn't feel lucky. I didn't feel like it was something that I just didn't know how to be okay with it. So it was the first time that I sought help for grief, because I had to let go of what my expectations were for this birth and realize that this wasn't what God had planned for me. And I couldn't have known then that what God had planned was for me to start writing on my own, and for me to tell my story, and for me to tell a story for Julianne. So I wrote a book called Rosie the Imperfect Angel. And it's a fairy tale illustrated about a little angel who has a very different face and feels unaccepted by her sister angels. And it's the story of her evolving into her self-esteem, into her glory. So that transformation put meaning into what I was experiencing with grief. And that transformation helped me come to terms with, yes, I feel more vulnerable in my life right now. Yes, I feel bad things can happen, but good things can happen too. And that book actually brought me to my best friend in life, Melissa, because the book was out there, and the American Cleft Palate Association wanted us to have a benefit for placing the books in the hospitals and clinics around the United States. And so Melissa was the beautiful, incredible surprise that came out of all of this into a friendship that has been enduring and thriving and loving and miraculous all these 30 years since then. And I'm so grateful.
Me
So what I learned from that experience is to look for the gifts in things. And you might say, wait a minute, there are no gifts in bad things happening or in something such as loss. And I couldn't have known then, because I felt like, okay, I got this figured out. I wrote a book. I feel good. I feel like I'm helping the world, other people, through tragedies such as this, through difficult times, through transitions. I couldn't have known that just 4 years later, I would lose my son. And it was sudden, it was swift, it was unexpected. He woke up with a fever. I took him to the doctor. The doctor said it's the type A flu. And I thought, okay, the flu, we can handle this. I took him home, put him to bed. I made chicken soup. I sat with him during the day. I put cold cloths on his forehead. We watched Saturday Night Live well into the night. We were talking we were planning on Christmas shopping. It was just 5 days before Christmas Eve. And we were talking about shopping and getting his girlfriend a gift. And I kissed him and told him I loved him and that he would be better in the morning. And I put him to bed. I didn't know that the next morning I would wake up and he would be lifeless. And that moment in time changed my life forever. And I didn't think that I could survive it. I didn't think that there could be life after such a tragic loss. And what I have learned since then is that when you go through something like this is a transformation that is not always easy, but it's possible. And it starts with accepting help into your life, with learning how to ask for help. And one thing that I always say to people when they say, what do you do for someone who doesn't, who's going through a loss like this? I don't know what to do. And my answer to that is show up. Show up. It doesn't matter how you do it, just be there. Whether you have a phone call or you come to the house, whatever it is, it's going to make a difference in that person's life, even just sitting there. So on that day that my son died, someone showed up, and it was Steve, was a guy that David was working for at another show at the time. And he had experienced the loss of his son just a few years before. And he was about the same age. And he told us his story. He came to the house, sat down, had a book for us. And he said, you will survive this. It's not going to be easy, but you will survive this and you will have a life after this. And I wanted so desperately to believe him, but all I could feel was the pain. And he said, this book will help you. Just read it. It's written by a mother who has lost a child. And we held on to this book and read it and reread it. And it helped us understand what we were going through. I couldn't have imagined that a book would be so important to me. And I read that book and I kept it in my purse. I took it, I would read it in the carpool line. I would read it at night before bed. This mother spoke to me. She gave me the words of empowerment that I felt, okay, if I can survive this tragedy of my beautiful son, I'm going to write a book of my own someday. And what I did was I started keeping a journal. And that journal was life-changing for me. That journal brought me a place to put my tears, a place to put my anger, a place to be able to really express what I was feeling, and it was private. So I had 3 other children to raise, and I knew that they needed a whole mom. I knew that they needed somebody other than the mom that felt like all I wanted to do was be in my head with my son who was gone, because that was where my mind always was. And I knew it wouldn't be fair to them. So I had to find greater meaning in my life to realize that I needed to be present for them. So that journal gave me the pattern interrupt that I needed during the day to be able to cry my tears. I'd go out into the garden. I would cry my tears. I'd write about it. I'd write about how angry I was. I'd write about how it would make me mad if David had a good day, my husband, and I had a bad day. I would feel resentful. It would give me a safe place to store those feelings. But what it did even more was give me a look at the progress that I was making in my grieving process. And I could see that the times that I was okay were getting longer. And I was able to feel joy for momentary, just, shreds of time where that pain didn't hit my heart. I was learning new ways to live with grief. I knew, and I would prepare for every morning when I'd wake up and it would hit me in the stomach again. My God, my son is gone. And I don't want to live without him. But I've got 3 kids downstairs. And I know that I need to be there 100% for them. And I remember waking up one morning, and we had my baby, he was 1.5 years at the time, in the sitting room next to our bedroom. And I remember hitting me in the gut, my God, my son is gone. And hearing Jackson's laughter, and he would sneeze and then laugh and then sneeze and then laugh. And I peeked into the room, and what was happening is the sunlight was coming right into his crib. And every time he faced the sun, he would sneeze. And his laughter was such pure joy that I started to laugh. And I thought, where is this laughter coming from? I feel like this is the first time I've laughed since Garrett's died. And it felt so good, so healing. And I knew that if I could do that, that I was going to be okay. So I don't want to go on too long about, the whole story, unless there are some questions. I don't want to take time from other people, but I can tell you, I want to just revert back to one thing that I said about showing up. This was a few days before Christmas that my son died. And I remember calling Melissa and saying, I don't know how I can do Christmas. I don't know how I can wrap presents. I don't know how I can be Santa. And yet these kids deserve to know that life will go on and that we are going to have a Christmas that will celebrate our family, including our beautiful child that left this earth way too soon. And so about an hour later, Melissa showed up at the door, arms full of wrapping paper, tape, and scissors and ribbon. She said, we're going to wrap those gifts. And we went outside and on the back patio, the kids were at school, and we wrapped everything. And we had instant Christmas because Melissa showed up. I didn't ask her to, but she showed up. She felt the need and she showed up. And that's what I want to encourage other people that are feeling so helpless with people, is that you just show up. Maybe it's bringing dessert that they don't expect. Maybe it's preparing a meal. Maybe it's asking them to go to the park with you and picking them up, because honestly, even thinking of getting in a car is a hard thing when you've experienced such a deep, deep loss. And so I want to, at some point, get more into the healing process, because that's an important part. But what I want to reiterate is that there's life after loss. I know it. Melissa knows it. Christine knows it. Nicole knows it. There's life after loss. And it's what you do with that loss that changes you forever. And you can choose that it can change the future in a positive way. Not that you won't ever feel sadness again or despair, because you will. It's just the nature of loving someone so much that the pain, you'll feel the pain, but you'll also feel the love. And one thing that I do know, and people ask me this all the time because I've helped a lot of parents through this process, is, but I don't know what to do with the love. I loved him so much, I don't know what to do with it. And what I discovered is that the love never, ever dies, but in fact, it grows. As though they're here on this planet, your love will continue to grow as the years go by, and it will be there forever. And I promise you that. So thank you for letting me tell that story. And I'd like to interject more things as we go on, but it's a process, and no one's immune to loss.
Thank you, my BFF. Thank you so much for sharing that with everybody. Because I was there essentially through all of it, yes, I showed up, and yes, I helped, and yes, I did things, but I also have grief attached to that loss. So there is that ripple effect there. And I'm so grateful that we had each other
Yes.
that during that time. And then every other thing we've been through, whether it was our going through divorces or moving, there's grief and stress.
Yes.
There's so much. And actually, while we're now talking about all the different ways we grieve and all the different reasons we grieve, I'm gonna hand it over to Christine because she's been noting like crazy.
Hi, everyone, and thank you so much, Sandy. I was able to catch a few things, a few comments that people were saying. And, you know, the vulnerability that we're afraid of being vulnerable. And we put a shield up. And, you know, one of the comments was about vulnerability. The other one was during their loss, and I apologize, I don't know the name, no one showed up. And they felt like they did it alone.
That was Patricia Armstrong.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Patricia, for being here. And, you know, it's communities like this that can be there for you, that know how to be there for you. And as you had said, we're not sure how to deal with our own grief. And it's more challenging to deal with trying to help someone because you can't fix it. They're not broken. They need to go through it in their own time and in their own process, and just being there, just to your point, showing up. Let me, you know, to have someone say, and I know that's always with the best intention, well, let me know when a good time to come over is. Well, at that moment, no time is going to be good for us, for the person who is grieving. So show up. And I think within our culture, we've gotten so used to and so accustomed to, well, I'm not going to call them. I'm not going to just show up. I'm going to text. Well, showing up at someone's door is, it feels a little bit out of our comfort zone, but I think we're dealing with a situation that is so uncomfortable. There is no wrong way to do this. There is no wrong way to grieve. There is no wrong way to be there for someone and respect what they're going through. And the emotions of loss and grief are challenging, but associated with that, there is healing and there is hope and there are plans, and you get there in your own time. There's no, as Nicole said, it's not linear. There is no timetable. And being willing to allow yourself to get some help, meaning express what you're feeling. And even if it's, you know, I know that Sandy's going to be working on an exercise, but writing down your thoughts is, to Sandy's point, not only is it cathartic and you're getting it out, maybe you're writing to the person that you lost. It's also then a diary, a history, a legacy. I can't think of testament to the love of that person, what you're going through, the hard times, but as Sandy said, the good days. What kind of made that a good day? Let's try and not repeat the day, but your son's laugh. That I know is going to work for me, because there's never getting through this. And I, you know, with all my clients, with all my coaching clients, there's no wrong way and there's never a failure. I tried that and it didn't work. Well, okay, it didn't work. Check. I know maybe not to do that again this next week, but maybe I'll try it in a month. But I'm going to try something else, because there's always that next option if we choose to look for it.
I think while we were using the word vulnerable too, it's really important as a friend or support or relative to be vulnerable enough to help, to be willing to be brought to tears and to be willing to feel the pain that you're sharing and to be empathetic that way. It's all okay. There's no wrong way to me, the only, and I don't even like to use the word wrong, the only thing I would discourage is saying things like, don't cry, it's going to be okay, everything's all right, because it just, when you're in that kind of pain, it just isn't. I am so mindful about the words I use in these situations. I do say things like, this is not okay, and please come cry here. What can I do? How can I help? And even if sometimes without asking, I'll just, like Sandy said, show up. But you have to be willing to be vulnerable as the person who's helping as well. Because you're going to have a lot of feelings around all of it too, because we are all connected, because we all walk through these things. No one is immune from grief. No one lives a life without dealing with it. So it really is a communal experience. And we, especially now that we've come out of being locked down and separated and we're coming back together again, this is another thing that we really have to, I'm hoping that we not only remember how to be a community, but are inspired to be even better than we were before we separated. Because now's the chance to really love one another and help one another and walk through. And goodness knows, there's so much grief and loss of all the things that we went through as a world over the last couple of years. Completely different side note, but just as an indication of how the ripple effect of the pandemic has affected people and grieving and stressing and pain. I went to the dentist to get my teeth cleaned this last week, and Joe, the dental hygienist, who I love, my dentist is like family, was telling me that they've had so many patients coming in with broken teeth and ground down teeth because so many people are clenching and grinding in their sleep more than they ever did before. And it's all pandemic related. So that's grief. We had to grieve not being able to see our families. We had to grieve not being able to grieve.
Mhm.
People couldn't have funerals, which is a big part of how we gather. So we've had grief on grief on grief collectively. And we really need to be gentle with one another and gentle with ourselves as we move forward with this, because it will continue to happen. But there are beautiful things that will come out of it. And I love the idea of keeping the journal so you can look back and go, oh, look, 2 weeks ago, I actually was okay. So maybe I'll be okay in 2 weeks, or whatever it is. So I love the idea of maintaining that kind of hope.
Melissa, one of the comments we sometimes hear is, if I am happy or I have moved on, am I forgetting the love that I had for this individual or loss, right? And I think that's something really important to bring up, because there's a lot of guilt that I hear and feel sometimes in moving on, or feeling like I'm healing. And so, Sandy, how do you address when you hear something like that they feel guilty, that they're something makes them smile, or that they're able to laugh again? What advice would you give?
Well, I actually experienced that. Like, am I allowed to laugh? Because I remember even, I would go out to dinner parties or, go over to a friend's house and feel laughter. And then I would leave feeling like, wow, that was an unusual experience, because I don't think there's any reason to laugh. I'm feeling stuck in that, laughter feels very foreign to me right now. And I remember adopting different behaviors that are called magical thinking in the world of grieving, where you have this magical thinking that if you do something, then it's going to make a different result. There's going to be a different result. And so I would do things like every morning when my children would leave for school, I felt very vulnerable. Could I lose another child? That was terrifying to me. And so even if they had a cough, and by the way, what he died of is bacterial meningitis. It was misdiagnosed. The doctor diagnosed it as the flu, and it was not the flu. It was bacterial meningitis, and it took him so swiftly in 24 hours. And so I was afraid that one of my other children could leave that fast. So every morning for school, I would, as soon as they would leave the door, I would say, okay, have a wonderful day, be safe. And if I didn't say that, I actually remember driving to the school, peering through the schoolyard at my littlest, I guess it was Julianne, because she was 5 at the time, through kindergarten, the fence, and saying, "Be safe, have a wonderful day," because I'd forgotten to do it when she went out the door. And those kinds of magical thinking, you feel, oh, this is really weird, I'm losing my mind. And it happens. So you have to be gentle with yourself and know that you're in a process of healing. You're going to feel all sorts of feelings. And as far as that moving on part of it, there really is no moving on from what is going to be a part of your life forever. What it is inviting that child into your life in a new realm. Garrett is very much with me every single day in a new realm. And when you invite that feeling of, yes, he's with me, and then give that loss meaning. And that is the critical step of forming a new relationship with your child. What I did was I took my journals and I knew that I had a book here. I knew that just like that book, The Bereaved Parent, that was given to me on the first day, that she helped heal me. And I knew that I had enough material in my journal to do something similar, to write my story, to help give people the tools that I used and develop the tools that I learned from other people. And in transforming that grief story into one of love and meaning, it's life-changing. And you will be able to restore a life, not better, equal to, not what it will be is different from what you thought. But I feel that I've restored my life to being able to move forward in an extraordinary way with the acceptance and the daily integration of my loss as something meaningful. So I hope that answers the question. Do not feel guilty about a time limit. There's no time limit on grieving. The only wrong thing that could be about grieving is if you're doing self-harming, and then it's so important to get help. And that's what happened to me, is my obsessive thinking, like, oh, if I say that they're going to be fine when they go to school, they're going to be okay. And, I'd find myself like organizing obsessively. That was like a mindless something that I could do but I would get up in the middle of the night. Oh, I'm having bad thoughts about my son being gone. So I'd go and I'd organize a closet or something. Well, those were kind of not helpful behaviors, because they were taking away from the quality of my life. And I did seek help from a therapist, and I am so glad that I did. And if it's not a therapist, seek help from a friend. I mean, Melissa knew all of my stories. I was able to talk freely and openly about it at any time. And I knew that I could tell her a story that I'd told 50,000 times before, and she'd be okay with that. And so seek those people in your life. And I know, who was it that said that no one came, Nicole?
Patricia.
Patricia, I am so sorry that you had that experience. And it is not easy to navigate it alone. And when people abandon you, I have to say there were a couple of friends who couldn't deal with my loss, who couldn't accept it. And it was very painful for them to be with me. And so they didn't. And it hurt so much. And just know that it's not you, it's what they are incapable of dealing with. And sometimes you have to form a dream team around you that will help you, whether it's a therapist, you hire someone to be there, or you join a group, or you instigate people surrounding you. I urge you to always feel supported. And in my way of feeling supported, I was very fortunate. But if you don't have that, and what I needed in addition to that was a therapist, or clergy, someone that can help you through it. That's the most important thing you can do. And I'm sending you that energy right now that people will begin surrounding you. And I hope you return to this community as often as you need to get that help.
I actually signed on and I'm reading comments. And there's a lot of extraordinary stuff coming in, and it just warms my heart so much to see everybody reaching out and sharing, which is why we're here. And I am so grateful to have this forum. A couple things I just wanted to touch on to piggyback off of what Sandy said. When we go through a really traumatic grief like this and a loss, whatever it is, to my mind, and I've walked through quite a few of my own, I tend to want to control my environment as much as I possibly can. And that's where my going and organizing drawers and closets come from. And that's what you were doing, Sandy. You know, Smarta, I'm sure, has told you this as well. Smarta would be our smart therapist. We also share a therapist.
Yeah.
Smarta would say, you're controlling your environment, you know? And I'd say, yes, I am. And I'm very happy to be doing it right now. I'm going to feel my feelings in a little bit, but right now I really just want to put the cereal in the container and make a label. So leave me alone. And it actually, for me, those things become sort of a sign of life in me. It means that, for me, it means that I don't get up at 3 a.m. and do it, because that I know is unhealthy, and that I could see in you, that, and I'm glad you saw that. But these are the tools that whatever we have that we use to kind of take back that control. And that is something that you can control when everything feels out of control. Mm-hmm. And the other thing about grief, and then I'm going to hand it over to you guys again, is that it's different for everybody. Mm-hmm. No two people grieve the same way. So couples don't grieve the same way. Mm-hmm. Siblings don't grieve the same way. It could be the same loss, but everybody's reactions to it are immediately different and continue to be different. So couples are rarely on the same page. One could be really down and sad and crying, and the other one could be trying to pull themselves out. And then you build up those resentments, and it compounds grief on grief on grief. So it's really important, I think, to have those outlets like a journal or a place where you can actually go and feel those feelings, whether it's a video journal or a handwritten. I like the writing. I'm a terrible journaler. Smarta will tell you. She's been my therapist for decades, and she has tried to get me to journal, and I will only do it in my darkest moments, but I will do it, and I will put a pen to paper, and the things that come out are just for me. Mm-hmm. And then I want to say one more thing, and then I'm going to hand it over to Christine, because she's again noting like crazy. Sandy's book, if anybody wants to get it, is called How to Survive the Worst That Can Happen by Sandy Peckinpah. And it's available on multiple outlets. Mm-hmm. And then also for you in our community should know that we will be putting up a page on our website that will have a number of resources to click on to go to for help if you are experiencing grief, loss of any kind. And we'll also provide, I think we even have, Nicole, a link to Sandy's book maybe already.
We do. It's on there, but we definitely will make it much easier, put it on the homepage, and we'll make those links very accessible. You're absolutely right. I think if you're feeling that you're alone, and poor Patricia, and again, we feel for you. And I think that the hardest part of the world we live in, but also what's a good piece, is that we can't directly interact, and we can't touch, and we can't feel maybe a person next to us at times, but there are communities and forums online where you can get help. And you can surround yourself with people who understand what you're going through. So we will share those things.
Yeah. I also want to make one more little point, and then I'm going to definitely hand it over to you, because I think you'll like this one. Sorry, I just, because I've been reading some of the comments too. It's really, and I know I've done this, it's really important not to compare your grief either, or why you're grieving, because any kind of loss for anyone that creates pain is their loss and their pain. So, you know, I saw a posting from Marisol de Alvarez, who's in terrible pain because she lost her dog. And I believe the dog was in her life for 11 years, and she's in agony about that. And I lost a dog last year. And when I go through grief like that, my first thought is, like if I'm still, I can't get myself together, I'm going, what am I doing? It's a dog. It's not like a child, or it's not like when my father passed away, or it's not like, but it is.
It is.
Grief is grief
Mhm.
is grief, whether you're moving, or you lost a job, or you're injured, or you can't play a sport anymore, or you have to give up a passion, or whatever that is. Grief is grief. It's no greater or lesser depending upon what caused it. So
Agreed. Yeah, definitely. And it's everyone's, and even when, I also lost a dog after 16 years, and it was heartbreaking. She and I, and that was a period that I was single. She was my family. And so never also feel, well, to Melissa's point, it's not it's nothing is ever minimized. Everything, if you are feeling pain, that is equal to the pain that someone else is feeling for them. And when I was reading through some comments, and I'm not sure if I said it, and I'm certainly going to correct my own terminology, and I apologize, I didn't get the name, but we had talked about, and the comment was, well, someone told her to get over it.
she told herself.
To move on.
Yeah, she told herself.
There was a romantic relationship who didn't want to compete with the grief. And that is, you don't need a huge support system. You don't need a lot of people, but boy, you need the right ones.
Mhm.
And the right ones for you. It can be one. And if that one person is there for you, hold on really tightly. And, so get over it, move on. And the comment was, I moved through it. I processed through it. And that means it's ongoing.
Mhm.
That means it's every single day. And it's not maybe grief every single day. Maybe it's missing someone. Maybe it's loneliness. Whatever that is, processing through it, acknowledging it, accepting it in the sense that it's not, doesn't mean it's okay, doesn't mean that you agree with it, but accepting that it's there for you, not denying it. And how am I going to get through this moment? How am I going to get through this 10 minutes? How am I going to get through this car ride, this errand, this, what's on the other side? And there does get to be the point, and again, whether it be a loss of a marriage, a loss of a pet who is a family member, loss of your health.
Mhm.
That's, that is, you're dealing with yourself, and your loss. My father has Parkinson's, and he grieves not being able to speak. He grieves not being able, his mind can still do what it wants to do, but his body's not following. And accepting that and allowing the person to process that, and moving through it, as someone eloquently said.
I think, Christine, also there's something about people don't recognize collective grief. Like, so many people were affected by the loss of Olivia Newton-John. And those kinds of moments can trigger grief in you, whether you knew her or not. You have lived with this icon for all of these years and loved her music and loved who she became after she was diagnosed with cancer. She was the icon that everybody said, wow, isn't she a miracle in the way that she handled her illness, in the way that she transformed her illness into something that was meaningful by helping others through the cancer story, through the, doing benefits. I mean, she made her cancer journey public, and with a feeling of, oh, look at her, after all these years, she's still going strong. And then when she lost the battle, it felt devastating. And I know so many people, going to the gym, it was the topic of conversation. Going to the office, people were saying, oh my God, did you hear about Olivia Newton-John? What does that trigger for you? And sometimes you're saying, well, I didn't know her, but you knew what the experience was. And that's a loss of, well, it's a feeling of being vulnerable for one thing.
That's hope.
Yeah. And
Lost hope.
also loss of, perfect, Melissa, loss of hope. And so collective grief came a lot during the pandemic. People were saying, I don't know this world. It's so different than I thought it was. And jobs changed and living situations changed. And we have to open up our thoughts to the fact that grief, like Christine said, grief comes in many forms. It can be a job loss. It can be the pandemic. It can be a celebrity dying. It can be, and here's another one that I learned when I studied with the Grief Recovery Institute. It can be a major accomplishment, like a graduation from college.
Oh yeah, and now
yeah,
you're done.
sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it can be that. And suddenly your old life is over. So grief comes whenever there's an ending and a new beginning. And you don't know what that new beginning is because you're on that threshold and you're scared and you want to go back to the safety of your old life. So and even marriages can change. Yeah. Change.
I'm actually laughing because you just caused me to flashback on the day I graduated from high school after the party, which was great. My mom's party, Sandy. My mother gave me a huge graduation party. My whole class was there and everyone I worked with was there. It was like a big thing. And when everybody left, I went in my bedroom and I laid on the floor sobbing. And my mom came in and she said, "What's wrong with you?" I said, "What am I going to do now?" She said, "Well, you have to go to work tomorrow." So you're still shooting that television series thing you're on. But I said, "Yeah, but what am I going to do? I don't have school anymore." And she said, "Give it a few days. You're going to be fine." And she was right. But at that moment, it was I was grieving this. I'd been a student.
Yeah.
That had been my primary career, even though I worked too. That was something I got to do if I got good grades. So school was my job. And then it was over. And I wasn't going to college because I had a company, a job. It was crazy. I also, sorry.
No, go.
I was reading some of these comments and I just want to share with you guys really quickly. We were hearing and we spoke to Patricia Armstrong, who's really in a lot of pain. And a woman named Lisa Harris has reached out to her, and Lisa is a grief therapist, and they're meeting privately.
I love it.
And then there's Marianne Wilson Fayer, who said she finally feels seen. She said, 4 strangers are doing what people who purport to love me can't. So, and thank you for that. But that really validates our point. Now you have community.
Right.
And we're not strangers because we've all been where you are, and we will all be where you are again. This is one of those things that will join us all together. And it's just very important to have places like this to share that with one another.
And Jackie Lawson said, I consider it a victory every day that I get through. And good for you, because you know what? At the end of the day, we all start out saying, I want to have a good day. Well, okay, what's your definition of a good day that day? And I think we even talked about it during the last slide. I'm going to be the best that I can be today. Well, it's going to be different than yesterday. And it's going to be different than tomorrow. And if you're exhausted or grieving or really feeling alone, still being the best that you can be in that moment. And that doesn't mean great, but self-compassion, caring for yourself, getting to the end of a moment, an hour, and saying, I did that. Now I'm going to get through the next one, and having every day be that victory. So thank you, Jackie. And the one thing that keeps popping in my mind, and I'm going to paraphrase it, but it was Kara Sedgwick. And I think women go through this. Kara Sedgwick said at one point, being a really good mom is the only job that if you know you did a great job, you get fired at the end.
Oh, yes.
And it's not that you're
And that's
never
grief.
not that you're not their mother, but they go on to do other things, and that's exactly what they're supposed to do. And she's like, well, now what? And I loved that, because it was, you did a great job, but that grief of a child going to college or moving to New York or moving wherever they're moving for the first time,
I
is
understand that. I get,
she's probably crying.
yeah, I get that. I get that completely. And I think, you know, you are fired, leaving your child in college. It's so bittersweet. You raise this amazing human, and it's like, okay, you're on your own. But this hole that you have daily, I think, you know, one of the comments when, and again, I forget who said this again, but this idea of moving on to what? What are you going to fill your time with? What are you going to do? And I think it also comes back to personal judgment. If you sit and you're being still and you're feeling that emotion, it's always like potential guilt of, well, what should I be doing? What should I be doing? I think journaling is such an important element. There's permanence to writing. And I think being able to look back, and especially now where everything is just instant, I think being able to write how you feel in that moment. And I think it's okay to feel and to feel that loss. So I really, since meeting and being able to be introduced to Sandy, who's incredible, you know, writing my feelings down in my own space, you know, has been very cathartic.
I used to be afraid that if I allowed
Yeah.
myself to start crying,
Mm.
I wouldn't stop. So I really spent a lot of my life soldiering up and putting on a suit of armor and just not doing it. And particularly after losing my father when I was 11, that was a trauma. It's indescribable trauma. But then having to walk through it again when I was 45 and found out the truth of how he died was yet another thing. And I thought, back then, I thought, if I start, I'm never going to stop, and then I'll never function again.
Mm-hmm.
But as an adult at 45, when I lost my father, as I say, for the second time, which it is, it's like he passed twice. I let myself feel my feelings, and it was bad. It was hard. It was horrible. It was, I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. It was traumatic. It was agonizing. It was scary. I felt like I was out of control, but I was surrounded with people who loved me, like Sandy. I was surrounded with people whose fathers had died the same way, by suicide, with guns. Two friends that I had came right over, whose fathers had died by suicide, and I eventually stopped feeling that way. So it didn't last forever. But it did come back. There were moments where it would come back in waves. It's not linear. You know, is it the 5 stages of grief?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a roadmap. You can be bargaining, and then an acceptance, and then angry, and then depressed, and it jumps all over the place. But I saw myself healing by allowing myself to feel, as opposed to when I was a child and I didn't allow myself to feel.
And someone just, Mary Nix, she felt the same way. I always feared not to be able to stop the pain from flowing. And I once told myself it was like holding a closet full of junk clothes. I use that analogy like a ski locker. It's like, okay, I'm going to push everything in and I'm going to shut the door. I'm not going to be the one that opens it. And we, you know, when we talked about this last time as well, the words never and always. I am never going to stop. I am always going to feel like this. Trying to, at times, reframe it by just using maybe another word. Never and always are a very long time. And yes, you may never have that person exactly how you had them. But as Sandy said, you will have them. They will be part of your life. It's going to be different. And as long as you keep them alive and with your love and your caring and your memory and your talking to them, it's challenging, but it is done. There is hope and there is healing. As we said, I love the one, there's a testing. As you said, you know, there's the 5 stages and everyone said it's not linear. They felt it was being put in a box. Well, opportunities and testing and seeing what does make me feel better. And okay, this didn't check. Let me not deal with that right now, but let me try something else. It's always trying. It's always, I just said, don't use always. Whoops.
Well,
It's trying, it's moving forward. And I honestly believe this, I read this once, that it is almost, if you start to move, physically move, that helps your body, because you do get some kind of endorphins and you do get some kind of oxytocin, and there are the hormones in your body that you will feel differently than if you're just sitting on your couch. So getting up and walking,
just walking.
just moving your body is a process, part of the process, and that can be a victory for the day. I walked.
By the way, getting up and organizing the pantry, maybe controlling the environment, but you are moving and getting a little endorphin release.
Yes.
That's true.
For what that's worth. Not necessarily at 3 a.m, Sandra.
Well, Mrs. B, listen, one thing that I want to bring up is the fact that you had very compounded grief, because you had the loss of your father, and then you had the loss of Michael Landon, and then you had the awakening of how your father died, which was another trigger for grieving all over again. So you compounded your grief in that short amount of time in the early 90s, and you know, when all of that happened, and on top of Garrett dying first, you know, and then it was from there. So it just kept piling on. And yet, you know, you had a therapist and I had a therapist, the same therapist. Really was like a gift, but to be able to talk to someone about it. And, you know, one thing I want to bring up is the things people say. And when you see someone who is going through a loss, like when people tell me, oh, you know, I lost my child, I'm not quick to say, oh, I lost mine too. What I do say is, I can't imagine how hard this must be for you right now. And because you are validating what they're going through and how hard it is. People want to say things that are going to make you feel better. Like they'll want to say, oh, well, he's in a better place, or, you know, he's out of pain, he's moved on, or there are all kinds of things that people want to say. But in my mind as a mother, there was no better place than my son to be in my arms. And I didn't want to imagine that better place could be anywhere but with me. I wasn't done loving him yet. And that was my great fear. What do I do with the love? And I can't stress enough how important it is to find meaning in what you go through. You know, Melissa has helped a lot of people through the palliative process, through hospice, and helping people go through the death process, and calling attention to suicide, donating our time for people that are in need. Melissa, you've spent thousands of hours doing that over the years that I've known you, and even before then as a child, I know you did. You visited children's hospitals. If you can find meaning and do a shift, it's called a pattern interrupt in therapy terms. Do a shift, do something meaningful. You will have an opportunity to cross over that threshold, because there really is no choice. You can't live in the past. You can't live with thinking that it's ever going to be what it was. It's different. And the acceptance of that difference comes with finding something inside of you that says, I must live, I must go on. And I don't know what that is for you. For me, it was writing my book. And I knew that I had something worthwhile. It was also planting a garden. You know, I did that. I did a rose garden for my son, and that was also a place to cry. You can find secret places to cry. But the interesting thing is that I discovered is I was so afraid if I cried, I would never stop. But just like Melissa said, but when I went into my garden and decided now was the time to cry and just sobbed, there was an ending to it. And I somehow felt better. There are endorphins that come up from deep, deep crying. And that's okay. Don't feel like you failed because you wanted to cry your eyes out for an hour. Accept it as a loving part to yourself. You loving yourself enough to express those emotions.
You were talking about what people say,
I saw
Mary
that.
Nix.
Yeah.
It actually almost made me laugh. Mary Nix says at my husband's calling hours, someone said, quote, I know how you feel. I lost my left breast to cancer. And she said, even in my state, I thought, what? But I learned then that people just don't know what to say when they face grief. And at that, you know, we're vulnerable. We don't know what to share. And God bless this person for trying to relate in some way. Yesterday, my mother and my sister and I were on a text thread talking about my sister's co-star whose mother passed away, and they had their first taping of my sister's show. And they put an empty seat there for his mother and put her name on the seat. And we've just been, there's been a lot of grief around our family lately and our family friends. And we've been texting a lot about it. And I wrote, this is just too much. There's too much grief right now. There's too much dying. I don't like it. I lost one of my chickens and I started laughing hysterically because I thought, I'm now comparing the loss of a mother to the loss of a chicken, but loss is loss is loss. And I wrote my mother, I said, I just made myself laugh. I said, I don't want to take away from the people who've lost their mothers. Trust me, I'm not in that much pain about the chicken. But just the fact that kind of added in,
moment.
it is.
Yep. And living in the present. And Sandy, you had said, you know, we can't. It's difficult. You can't live in the past. You can try and live in the past, but living in the present, and not even when you're going through that grief or as you're processing through the grief, moving through, the future can be 5 minutes from now. Don't, past is past. Bring it forward in a way that serves you. Bring that person forward with you for the rest of your life in a way that serves you. And the future will work out the way it's supposed to. When we visualize this is what it's going to look like, and then things change. We lose someone, we lose a marriage, we get a tattoo, and all of a sudden the tattoo doesn't have the same meaning anymore. Okay, well, we're gonna figure that out. But let's work with the moment right now. I lost my train of thought a little bit there, but the future will, that's what I was gonna say. We have a vision of what we think the future is going to look like. And then something completely out of our control changes that vision for us. Mm-hmm. Well, crap, now what do I do?
Well, now you have grief on grief.
Now you have grief on grief. So accepting the future, and it was Eleanor Roosevelt who said, and I love her saying, accept nothing, expect nothing. Expect nothing and accept everything. Mm. And that is, again, accepting is not saying it's okay. Accepting is not saying that you agree with it. It's just, it's there, it's reality. And now how do I move on from that? I apologize. How do I process through that?
Mm. And Sandy, you had mentioned you'd wanted to do an exercise with us And perhaps now would be a good time to kind of think through the exercise. And I mean, what I would say is, this is one, and Melissa brought it up, this is one of many conversations we're going to be having. And I think this is certainly opening up, and I'm looking through the comments. I mean, such vulnerability and honesty coming through in the comments. And, I think, as we mentioned, we're a community. If you don't have an immediate community, you can always reach out to us. We receive emails, we respond to emails, sometimes just writing how you're feeling, whether it be through comments or to sending us an email, and knowing that someone's on the other end listening and responding is helpful. But we will share, this is going to be one of many conversations, and it's again, we all go through loss, and that's the commonality to us as individuals. And I think, hearing from others how they're able to, I say, what did she, I think it was it Patricia, or I apologize, just moving through, and how you move through. And there may be thoughts at this point that I cannot move through. How am I going to heal? I cannot process at this point how I'm going to heal. And that's okay. And so I think it's being able to have a community just listen. And at that point, even that is movement, that is progression. Sandy responded to a community member who reached out to us and said, I don't know how to move on. And she said, you've written to us. That is a step forward.
Right.
So
Yep.
These steps, no matter what you think you're not able to do, you are progressing, you are writing, you are sharing. That is forward movement, even though it might not seem like it. So
It can even be as tiny as finally brushing your teeth.
yes,
Yes.
I've been there where I can't even find it in me to want to brush my teeth. And then I brush my teeth and I feel better.
right.
I did something.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah.
Tiny, tiny steps. Don't expect too much from yourself.
Mm-mm.
Don't expect too much from everyone else. Don't expect.
Don't expect.
Expect that's another. It's like always and never.
Expectations are a disappointment waiting to happen.
Oh, that's a good one, Christine. Yeah.
I think I'm going to sew that into a sampler.
Yeah. Drop it from a plane and leaflets all over.
Right.
Nicole, can we
exactly.
have that made into a pillow to sell on?
Sure.
Mhm.
Oh, Mary, thank you so much. And I know we want to get to Sandy. She said, this is good because I feel listened to for the first time in a long time. No one is trying to change the subject because they are uncomfortable.
Mhm.
Bless you for that. And Marisol said, thank you for the blessed space. So thank you to Modern Prairie for allowing this, being here, being created, and allowing a community to grow. And from what I see people meshing and connecting online, it's amazing.
It's hope.
It's hope. And I think Sandy was going to do an exercise.
Yeah. Well, I am so excited to be able to offer, after we've had this wonderful discussion, and I just am so enlightened with your questions and your honesty and how you're feeling. And there are things that you can do that are kind to yourself in the process of going through the grief journey, going through change, going through transformation. And, as we said, grief is not just one thing. It's not always just loss. It's a change of circumstance that puts you from one place in your life over the threshold to a transformation, to a new place in your life. And so I want to encourage you, if you have a paper and pen, to grab that paper and pen. And let me just back this up with a little bit of statistics. James Pennebaker, a professor at the University of Texas, did a study on journaling, transformative journaling in the face of trauma, trying to heal trauma, grief, all of those things. And he has actual statistics that support that journaling, even just 3 minutes, I think his minimum was 3 minutes a day, can be beneficial to healing. And what that does, and he urges, use the pen and paper. Why? Because it's tactile. You're tapping into a sensory emotion where you're feeling the pen, you're feeling the pen scratch against the paper. You smell the what's around you. You invite all of those senses into this process, because this allows your brain to open to the emotions that you're feeling. Are you holding back tears? Well, that's a huge burden on your system, your sensory system, to just deny those feelings in your throat, wanting to scream or cry. So if you take a pen and paper and first select a quiet place, hopefully you're in a quiet place, or even you can do this even in the middle of Starbucks if you're so bold. But you find a place to settle into a chair with a notebook and a pen. And now if we could just close our eyes and slow down our thoughts. And your thoughts right now after this conversation may be coming at you like daggers. You are feeling everything. It's time to take those thoughts and just bundle them all up and surround them in puffy, imaginary white clouds. And then breathe in the stillness of looking at the clouds and not the problems. You have puffy white clouds floating overhead. And you're going to do this for a few minutes and just breathe in. Send those thoughts up to the clouds. They're surrounded, they're safe in there. And then breathe out. When you're able to do this for a few minutes, you can open your eyes and draw attention to these 3 questions with your pen in your hand. Write down, it doesn't have to be perfect sentences, words, trigger words, thoughts, phrases. Write down, number 1, what is the one inciting incident in your life that's holding you in a state of feeling stuck, preventing you from moving forward in your life, unhappy, incapable? Is it the loss of a friend, the loss of a dog, a change in jobs, a divorce, a graduation, a pandemic, loss of a celebrity that you loved and knew all these years? What are those things that you feel trigger you right in this moment? It doesn't have to be a lot, just a few things. Then number 2, is there anything you're ready to let go of around the emotions you have connected to this incident? Are you tired of the anger? I was. Anger was self-destructive to me, and it couldn't change anything. Are you ready to let go of despair, heartache, as though you'll never find joy again? Happiness? Is there going to be happiness in your life? Can you let go of the thought that you'll never feel joy again? Keep thinking of those puffy, serene white clouds. Oh my gosh. This always makes me cry. And you might even, just like I did, feel a tear in the corner of your eyes because it's so painful sometimes. Can you imagine yourself now at any point in time since your loss? Can you imagine a time when you felt a moment of joy, just as I described when I heard my baby boy laughing, and that it brought me the sense that I could feel that joy again? Can you hold how that felt for a few minutes? I can smile thinking of that moment when my son sneezed at the sun in the early morning hours. And I my whole body can feel. I'm smiling. I'm feeling that joy. I'm drinking it in. And did you know that if you can recall that feeling for those few seconds, can you imagine that it's possible to expand that joy even longer than a few seconds? 1 minute, 2 minutes, 1 hour. Whatever it is, you're allowing your body to sense joy again, and that's healing. And now the last question is, what decision can you make today, right after you get off of this broadcast? What can you do today to begin your next step over the threshold, becoming unstuck? Let that foot rise up, cross over into the next act of your life. And once you've made even the tiniest decision, you'll have new clarity. You'll discover resilience, because resilience is in every single human being. You have the potential to not just bounce back, but bounce forward into your new life. That feeling will urge you to leave the negative ties behind, and you've awakened your ability to survive and move forward. And now when you look up at the sky and you see the puffy clouds moving, you'll know that those were in the past and the sun is now shining through. And your next chapter is waiting for you in all its glory. And I promise it's going to be great. Deep breath. I hope that was helpful.
Oh, thank you, Sandy.
Thank you.
Oh,
There's a lot of feelings coming through the page: guilt, regret, no self-worth, that I deserve what happened.
Mm.
Those are all 100% valid,
Yes.
100% real, 100% yours, ours now to share. And they are just feelings. They change, I promise. Just like I learned I would never cry, I wouldn't cry forever. Through that experience, I also learned that there's a time. There's a time for crying. There's a time for there's time for everything. But there is a time. And that everything we feel as we walk through these things is valid and correct and right and survivable. And there is hope. And we're all walking examples of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody has not been through trauma or grief. Nobody. I'm so grateful to our community.
It's amazing.
That we're able to get together and do this. Nicole, I'm so thrilled to be a partner and co-founder in something that creates a space like this for people. It's first of all, so healing for me. I like selfishly, I feel better already too. And I didn't even, I thought I was okay today, but I there was stuff. There's always stuff. We have stuff, and it's just nice to share it with people.
It is nice to share it. And there was a comment, and info, and I think Melissa, you followed up with it. info@modernprairie.com.
Yes, and people asked where they could write to share some of their feelings. So I put out info@modernprairie.com. Someone will read, somebody will respond. Or unless you just want to vent, it's there.
Right. Yes, and sometimes, to jump in on that really quick. Venting. Sometimes we none of us are broken. we don't need to be fixed, but very often we just need to get things off of our chest and not have someone on the other side trying to fix it for us with their own their own opinion or their own view on it. So start it by saying, you know what, I just need to get this off my chest, and the team will hear you. We're not going to fix. We're not going to whatever you felt in the past, as far as people being uncomfortable. This is a space to get it off your chest. And very often when we get it out of the mind and we can actually read it, it looks different on paper.
It maybe isn't so bad.
Right.
And the other thing is to remember also on the Modern Prairie website, there will be lots of links to other places and groups that you can, there are lots of resources for people who are grieving, and you can actually find and create a community through that as well. But we are just beginning our conversations about all of this. And based on what I've been reading and based on what we've been saying, I can tell that this is literally, it's like the roots of the tree that have just started. And now it's going to grow. And I'm very excited to see, what's next, what our next step is. And we'll all confab and certainly let everyone out there know what our next steps will be and how we're going to move forward, having this and other conversations. And we'd love your input as well from our community.
And it's a process of moving through and getting something that we've been, getting unstuck. We can be stuck in our thoughts, and moving through those as well is part of the process.
Yeah. All of it. All of the things that we feel, all of the things that we do, magical thinking, bargaining, it's all part of the process. And it is a process. It's a journey, not a destination. You don't just land on the other side of grief. Nope. It's with you, but you can find ways to live with it and to honor the love or the change or the transition or whatever it is that you're grieving from. Sandy had the garden and her journals. I have my talisman of my dad and the added charm of the dog that we lost last year. I have my father's things. I have my grandfather's hat. I like to have tactile things. Mm-hmm. That's my thing. And those are my treasured items. Those are the things those are my talisman. And that's what I have. And everybody has it a different way. One thing, very practical, very applicable. Sandy will completely understand where I'm going with this. It's very hard. Eating is a really difficult thing to do when you're in a really bad place of grief. Eating, I found with Sandy when Garrett passed away, that eating anything with a lot of spice and flavor was really hard for her, and it was really hard for me at traumatic times. Honest to goodness, the single greatest thing you can get for yourself when you're in that kind of pain is mashed potatoes.
Yes,
that's right.
True. Mashed potatoes. We've told my story when I was going through detox. That's the only thing, mashed potatoes.
Mashed potatoes, because you're getting nutrition, you're getting a clean food,
comfort.
It's a vegetable food, and it's comforting, and it will stick to your ribs and give you some fuel. It's really important because your blood sugar, when that blood sugar plummets and you're going through an emotional time, it doubles the effect of both things. It's really important. So the ultimate foods are white foods, white toast, but mashed potatoes at least have nutritional value. So
yes, I agree.
I always thought they should change the name of the Chicken Soup for the Soul book to Mashed Potatoes for the Soul.
Oh,
I love that too.
It certainly was for me.
I agree. Yeah,
me too.
All right, these comments.
Yeah. Self-care is so important during the grieving time. Sleep, eating, self-care. It's all just so important because it's the whole body you're treating for grief. Grief is felt in every part of your body, every part. is affected by it because the emotions run through your whole body. So yeah, taking care of yourself.
And
Very-
self-care is not selfish.
Mm-mm.
Everyone
No.
know that. Self-preservation.
Oh, Melissa, remember we went to the spa. Melissa had this.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, let's go to a spa. And this was about what, six months in, I think.
6 months in. Actually, I
Yeah.
think we were sent to a spa. I think it was our
We
husband.
were.
Could you please
Yeah.
go
Go.
take yourselves?
Yeah. And we had somebody else cooking for us these wonderful foods. But I remember the funniest thing. Well, Melissa paved the way for me because I said, Melissa, I don't want to go anywhere where I have to talk about what happened. You know, it's too painful. I just can't do it. And she said, don't worry, I'll take care of it. And so what she did was she had a speech prepared for everybody before they even met me. I didn't even know this. I didn't know this until after, I think, that, you know, she told, this is my best friend. This is what happened to her. And this is her healing time. And we're going to get through this together. And so everybody knew. I didn't know everybody knew, but it was so beneficial. And I remember when we were all playing volleyball and everybody was sort of a little bit of tiptoeing around my emotions. But I remember we were playing volleyball in the pool. Do you remember this, Melissa?
Do I
And
remember?
this raging competitive woman came out of me where I had to win this game. I thought, where is this coming from? I think it's the anger. I think it's the despair. It's like all coming to a head. And all of a sudden the ball comes to me and I slapped it down so hard and it went right in your face.
Right, smacked me so hard. And I mean, I was down.
And once I realized I hadn't hurt her, I started laughing a laugh like I had not experienced in months since my son died. And it was like this release of laughter that was so healing. I swear that feeling would come up and I'd laugh throughout the day for no reason. It was just a wonderful.
She smashed me in the face with a ball.
Smashed her in the
But
face.
it was, and in all fairness, it was a blow up beach ball. It wasn't like a volleyball. But
Yeah.
to see you laugh like that, I would have taken a broken nose. I really
Yes,
would.
that's true.
Just to know that was a moment for me too, where I went, we're gonna get through this.
Yeah.
We're gonna do it.
Yeah. I look like Homer Simpson, but we're good.
All good. Testing something new. You never knew you had that talent or power.
Yeah, or drive. I mean, I was an animal. I just thought,
Yeah.
oh, I'm gonna win this thing.
It was very exciting. Honestly, it was really exciting. It was this big mama bear that kind of came out, this just really powerful BAB that just smashed me right in the face.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh,
all
such,
right.
such an iconic moment in my life I'll never forget.
I love where someone, again, it may have been Patricia. I can never imagine myself, and if I'm paraphrasing again, I can never imagine myself speaking with a counselor, but this I can do. Here you go. I can't
Wonderful.
imagine speaking face to face with a counselor, but I did this. Good for you.
Wow. This.
Good for you. I did this.
See, that's a step. And you'll be able now, Patricia, you'll be able to, a few days from now, look back or whenever you need to, but especially when you're having a hard time, you go, wait, but I did that. So I can do this next thing. It's all connected. And it's phenomenal. And Patricia also said, I'm taking notes. Healing process seems to require slamming someone in the face with a ball. Interesting. But
Okay.
yes, well, but you may not slam me in the face with a ball
How
because
about-
I've been there.
Just trying something different.
It's funny.
Right. That was kind of the idea, was to
Do
get
something
away,
different.
to go somewhere different, to change a
Yeah.
change of scenery,
Yes.
and to go somewhere where we felt nurtured, because both of us were just wiped out at that point.
Yeah, and we wanted to go someplace where we weren't in our roles. I wasn't having to be a mom at that moment. I could actually feel feelings and not feel afraid that I was going to be compromising my, when I pick up my kids from school. It was just a moment away. And sometimes that's so healing to just go someplace different and be alone with your thoughts, whether it's just a walk on the beach for an afternoon. you know.
Yeah, or walk anywhere. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's important.
Mhm.
It's important. And I'm going to say it again because it's one of my favorite things. Self-care is not selfish.
Mhm.
You know, when you're on
You
a
have to
plane
do it.
and they tell you, put your oxygen mask on first.
There's a reason. You can't help anyone else if you are not taking care of yourself.
That's correct.
Nicole, have we forgotten, skipped, missed anything? Are you seeing anything there in your feed that we need to address?
No, I think we're all basically responding to the same feed. I think what we'll do is, as you mentioned, we'll have resources put up in the next couple of hours on our homepage. There'll be obviously, you can refer back to this session with us on our Facebook page. We'll post it onto YouTube as well so that you can share and others can take part in what we're doing. And then we'll circle back with our next session. And I think we'll figure out a forum. I saw a comment about it would be nice to see everyone's faces collectively to connect.
Yeah.
We're aware of that. We agree. I think part of us being a community and ensuring we're not invisible so that we really can see everyone. So it's something that we're conscious of, and we'll work through what that format looks like for the next session. But again, so grateful for everyone joining us on this Saturday, and to Sandy and Christine and Melissa and to all of you. I think this is the first step. You took a step today by attending. That's a
Yes.
huge step being here. This community that we're building is pretty phenomenal, and it fills my cup up. And I feel like we can really take this day on. So thank you. Melissa, anything?
I will say, because I just scrolled through, I was looking on my phone. First of all, I'm so honored now I'm crying, to be a part of something that helps. And that connects us in a way. But what I'm seeing here is I'm seeing all of you reaching out to one another. So when we go away, continue reaching out to one another. You found each other on Facebook, now become friends on Facebook and direct message one another and share your thoughts and feelings, because that's what our community is about. That's what we're all really meant to do. No one is meant to be alone, and you aren't alone. It's clear that you're not. We've all been where you are. There are people who will be where you're going. We all have things to share, and it is the commonality of our lives. And this is just one of the things that connects us, but it connects us on such a deep level, and we really do need each other. So don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to help. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable. And gosh, thank you all so much for participating with us. Christine, it's been such a pleasure for me. I'm going to hand it over to you too. And Sandy, I mean,
Yeah.
I can't, I don't, clearly I have no words. I can't even, there's just, I'm telling you, if you can find yourself a best friend like her, go get it right away.
Hold on tight.
Hold on tight. I say to people all the time, I love my husband. I love my children and my grandchildren. My girlfriends and Sandy are my life raft. They keep me afloat and full so that I can love everybody else.
And this is one of the aspects of social media that is actually positive and enriching and loving and nurturing. And so, as you know, Melissa said, there's a lot of names. Continue to connect with the people, continue to communicate with the people, and moving forward, moving through, processing through. There's a community out there to help, and there are people to help, and we want you to have great days, whatever they look like.
Sandra?
No words. I just know that I am so grateful for this space to share my story, and that all of you on this broadcast that are listening, thank you for allowing me to tell my story and to hang in there with all of the warts and the raw feelings and whatever that is. But most of all, I do hope that you feel a sense of hope that there's healing around the bend, and it comes with small steps that everybody was talking about. Christine, thank you. You are so right on in validating my approach to how I continue on this life that is terribly imperfect. To give us ways to do it. And Nicole, thank you for giving us this wonderful space that you've guided so carefully and crafted so carefully for us to be able to talk today. And most of all, I love you, BFF.
I love you, BFF.
Yeah.
Nicole, partner o' mine extraordinaire.
I have no words. I mean, to be surrounded by, I think, again, just we're all here for each other. And I think that there is hope, there is an outlet. Use it. Take that step and use and lean into each other, whatever way possible, and whatever you need from us at Modern Prairie within our power and our expertise. I think it's really important. We are not therapists, but we can help guide you into the right area if that is something that you need, and we are here to support. So thank you. More to come.
Thank you.
Yes, more to
Thank
come.
you.
Thank you all so much. Sending
Enjoy a great day.
so much love and healing everybody's way. And just remember, there's hope.
Bye, everyone.